Hey guys, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I wanted to come on and share a Diamond Dyes design team project, as well as my entry into Kathy, who is Huckleberry Herbs and Art, her Charles Dickens Christmas Challenge. And let me first share with you guys all the dyes that I used. I used this beautiful Snowflakes die set, and I didn't even pull them apart because it was easier to just run them through my Big Shot all attached together. I used this pine branch die, and I use the skeleton leaf die and this holly leaves die set. And that was it. They add so much texture and visual interest, and they're so intricate. Some of these three are so intricate that they add such a lushness to it. Now I have a lot of snowflake punches, but none of them are as intricate and as beautiful, I think, as this set of dies from Diamond Dyes. If you're going to make a purchase at Diamond Dyes, please consider using the coupon code Thanks Christina with a K, and you'll get 10% off your entire order and free worldwide shipping on all orders of $35 or more. Now, I'm going to attach a process video to walk you through step by step how I made this wreath. So I hope you enjoy the process video. I started this Christmas wreath with a styrofoam base that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I am coating it with a pretty thick coating of matte Mod Podge. I use matte because I don't want it to be too shiny, and the standard Mod Podge is a little more shiny than I like. And I've torn up pieces of some music note paper that I had gotten from Carol Watson, who is Crafty Carolina Gal here on YouTube. Thank you, Carol. And I will warn you that this kind of adhesive is not the best for styrofoam, but it works beautifully paper to paper. So as long as you can kind of connect each little torn piece to the next one, it covers beautifully. And I really like kind of that vintage Noel look that you get from music note paper as a background. Now I'm going to skip ahead to share with you guys some of the embellishments that I'm going to be using. I use this Diamond Dyes Winter Snowflake die set, and I'm doubling up the paper because this shimmery paper that I have is very thin. And what you're seeing is me trying to align the die cut pieces because it's not exactly symmetrical, so you do have to find the direction before you layer one piece on top of the other. And I'm using my favorite art glitter glue. I've attached a fine tip nozzle, which is great for getting into these tiny spaces, and the wet glue allows me a little bit of extra time to perfectly align the pieces. Next, I'm preparing some pieces that I have printed off the internet and fussy cut out. The first is this quote from A Christmas Carol. It says, "I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year." And I thought that was such a nice, inspiring quote. And I'm just kind of antiquing the cardstock. It was just printed on plain white cardstock. And I'm using Tim Holtz Distress ink and antique linen just to give it a little bit more of an aged look. You'll see that I kind of pounced rather than rubbing the blending tool, and that's because I didn't want the ink from the printing to bleed out. You'll see there I'm pointing out to you a little bit of the bleeding, but it wasn't bad on the actual piece itself. And I'm edging all around the cutout piece just to kind of give it a finished edge. I didn't want the white of the paper showing. I'm doing that to both pieces. The other image that I'm doing now is an image of Bob Cratchit and his son Tiny Tim. And I use a Faber-Castell Pitt pen to do that edging. Now I'm just doing some simple Copic coloring. If you're interested in the colors that I use, please check out my blog, which I will link to in the description box below. But basically, I'm just trying to create some folds and some dimension in this very simplistic drawing that I found online. And I'm keeping everything in kind of the green tones because I wanted the whole wreath to have kind of a cohesive color story. I'm keeping everything in creams and in greens with just the slightest accent of red. Here you see me adding kind of shadowed areas to create the illusion of folds in Bob Cratchit's coat. And I take my darkest green and then my next darkest and then my lightest to kind of blend everything together. But I wanted to create that illusion of it being real fabric. This next part is preparing the die cut holly leaves. I don't have an embossing tool, but I have the blunt end of an old paintbrush that has a very rounded back, and I'm just putting in kind of embossed lines to give the holly leaves a little more dimension, and I'm inking the edges with Distress ink in pine needles. And the paper that I used is actually just some scrap paper that had kind of a vintage script look to it on a green background. Now I'm taking those little holly leaves and embellishing the quote that I had prepared earlier. I'm just hot gluing those pieces on, and then I'm adding some red bling pieces, just some little gems. And you can see me cutting it off. It's actually in strips, but I'm cutting it off just so I can use the red pieces. Now I am kind of creating a cluster of leaves. These are the pine needles from the pine branch die from Diamond Dies, and I'm layering those pieces so that it surrounds, or it will surround, the quote that I'm going to glue on top. And I probably could have done more of the layering of the leaves beforehand, but you'll see me trying to tuck things in here and there. I'm cutting pieces apart so that I get different sizes and directions for the pine needles or the pine branches. And I'm just using my hot glue gun and tucking those branches in here and there. And I decide on the bottom I could use a few more holly leaves, a couple on the side there. And I think it adds a really nice focal point with those extra little berries that have a little extra sparkle. This part is just fun. There's no wrong to right to this. You just tuck in and add a fullness, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I think the pine branches are so beautiful and delicate. It adds a great texture. Now I want to create another focal point or another little embellished area, and I decide I'm going to add some more visual interest using the skeleton leaf die from Diamond Dies, and I've cut those pieces out of vellum, which I think adds a nice kind of translucent quality and just more interest. So I layer a few of those pieces in both clusters actually, and on the upper left side I am making this cluster a little bit smaller because the image is also smaller, and I want it to kind of be balanced with the size of the image. I'm also tucking in more of those skeleton leaves on the larger cluster. Sorry, I'm out of frame there, but I'm just trying to tuck it in behind the actual sentiment, the quote. Now I decide I'm going to add some holly leaves over on the left side with a smaller image of the Cratchits. And I'm using more of those red sparkly gems to add the berries to the holly leaves. And I think it balances it out really nicely. Here I'm snipping off a little extra piece from the image just to make sure that the little last gem there gets stuck on securely. And it was part of the image that really didn't make sense anymore. It was the connection piece between the father and son on the ground. Now I'm going to be adding the snowflakes that I had prepared earlier, doubling them up, making them stronger. And I'm tucking one in behind Tiny Tim because he was kind of floating off of the edge of the wreath, and I wanted to make sure that he was supported. And I'm securing him on top of that large snowflake. I decide I'm going to tuck in a medium-sized snowflake kind of behind Bob Cratchit, a little bit off to the left, because I want the whole little cluster to appear full. And I love the shimmer of that paper of those snowflakes. Now I'm going to sprinkle out snowflakes throughout the wreath. I want to make sure that I'm still keeping visible the music note paper that I worked so hard to put all around the wreath form. But I do want to add more interest by adding these little shimmery snowflakes throughout. I really like how that one looked over top of the green pine branches. And I'm adding them it's really easy to adhere these pieces with hot glue. And then lastly, I'm preparing where the wreath is going to be hung from. So I am using some pale green grosgrain ribbon that I've had in my stash forever. And I wanted the area where the wreath is hung from to look more substantial. And I also wanted to protect it to, strengthen that area of the styrofoam wreath. So I put 2 layers, making a wider kind of looking green ribbon base. And then I'm taking some cotton grosgrain ribbon that's in the natural color, and I'm putting that in the middle section there. And that makes it look like it's just one wide ribbon base. And unfortunately, I didn't catch on video the creation of this triple loop ribbon bow, but you see me futzing with it here, trying to make sure that the 3 loops on either side are kind of nicely spaced out. And I'm adhering it in a variety of places to the wreath base so that it will keep its form. And I don't know if I caught on video also, I embellished the center of that bow with an extra die cut snowflake in the center. This last little bit here is me just using my heat tool to eliminate all those pesky glue strings. That's right, you just use hot air and it magically makes all those glue strings disappear. I hope you find this tip useful. If you're making a purchase at Diemond Dyes, please use the coupon code ThanksChristina for 10% off and free worldwide shipping. If you enjoyed this process video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching!